Welcome to the Vocal Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Martin Thomas. Join me and my guest speakers as they discuss the journey they've had with their own voice, as well as light bulb moments, stories, and personal wisdoms. Vocal Freedom is a bi-weekly podcast raising awareness about vocal health and well-being from members of the voice community. My guest this week is Kate Millner, a professionally trained actress, voice artist, singer and storyteller who's had a very interesting journey with her voice. From working with Mitchell and Webb in her Cambridge days, moving into supply teaching where her voice use was intensified, and then followed the scary diagnosis and recovery from vocal nodules. More recently, Kate has also trained to become a celebrant, a person who performs and officiates formal ceremonies, using her voice as a source of comfort and support for grieving relatives. Kate is also half of the music duo at Swefn's Edge with her husband Michael, who is a soundscape composer and sound engineer. During lockdown, through the Mercury Creatives Programme of the Mercury Theatre, Colchester, some of their music has inspired all sorts of creative projects. You can learn more about this as Kate explains throughout the episode. Hear how important it is for creatives who need to keep that muscle working, to cope with the cancellation of work and contracts and adapt through COVID to stay creative with exploring new avenues of sound. So welcome, lovely Kate, to the podcast. How are you? Are you still treading the boards at all now? What's your story?
Yes, I am. I was still booked actually this year for another show at Castle Park Theatre in Colchester.
Yes.
Last year I did The Gift.
I saw that, yes.
Which was a gift because the part itself was written for me. And I was also cast in this year's production, which has obviously had to be cancelled.
Yeah.
So that's not happening, and that was my only real stage contract this year. I'd got loads of other things going on. I'd invested in a medieval tent so that I could offer hand fasting at Hedingham Castle when they did their jousts, because I used to work there with the Jester. We used to be the Jester and Judy show. And this year, all of the jousts were me offering hand fasting free to all the guests that pay to go in to see the jousts. So I'd got all of that ready, and costume and what have you, but that was cancelled. So this year, because of COVID changing a lot of things, as well as doing parties at Studio 6 Music, where I do a lot of work with my husband, they've obviously been cancelled. I've had to think around it, and I think a lot of creatives have had to do this. Okay, we can either sit down and mourn the loss of our work, or we can think, okay, where do we go from here? What's going to bring in the money? How am I going to remain creative? Because there's nothing worse than somebody who needs that creative outlet that doesn't have it. It affects our bodies, our minds, everything, our lives. So I thought, okay, what can we do? And it just happened that I trained as a celebrant 2 years ago. Never expected it to be my first job. This year it has become my main job. My supply teaching, my primary school teaching, I've never been a fully employed teacher in the usual sense of the term, always been a supply teacher that I can dip in and out of my acting work, even when I lived in London. That's gone by the wayside. My last day in school was in the beginning of March. I did a storytelling day with the school, which was very lovely that we got that in before the lockdown. So that's gone. So what I've been doing is really throwing myself into at Swefn's Edge with Michael Parker, my husband, here at the studio, just creating new ideas, concepts, filming. We've both been we've just journeyed on this learning curve this year through the Mercury Creatives Programme. I mean, that has really happened. We've got a fantastic mentor in Anthony Stewart Hicks, who's with APL Theatre Productions. He's just been fabulous, so inspirational, and he's been a sounding board for us, and just inspirational in the fact that I've thought, right, okay, I've got an idea, and then he'll say, brilliant, go with it. I've got an idea. Really? you want to do that? Okay, go with it. So we've done some crazy things. We've done July, we did a whole month of different videos with some of our musical tracks. I don't think we did any spoken word through that. It was mostly vocals, singing vocals. And then we did a meditation month through July. This month is our Dance on the Edge. So our music is being interpreted by different dancers, and we're throwing out challenges to the public to film and put their twist on our music. And then from now on, I'm really excited about recording a lot of my stories, part of at Swefn's Edge. Filming, we've done filming with binaural microphones, which we are really very excited about exploring. We've got ourselves a binaural head who we call Basil Harris. Don't ask. And so we're really exploring new avenues of sound and spoken word. So I've got that. I'm doing the funeral officiating, which is paying some of the bills, and just seeing where it's going. And what's so lovely, Lee, is when I was a single mum a few years, let's say about 10 years ago, the opportunities for me, I'd left my agent when I'd had my daughter. Looking back, I wish I hadn't have done that, really. But I left my agent to become a full-time mum. But after a while, I just knew something was missing, going back to this creativity. What do we do? We've got no outlet. And I set up my own company, which was called Fallen Moon, and that was storytelling, which combined my primary school teacher status with my acting, with my love of puppetry, because I've got a thing. I'm pretty obsessed with puppets, I have to say. I'm surrounded by them right now, actually.
I've got two now, but I'm not. I love them too, but not as clever with them as you are.
Well, but you just have to throw yourself into it,
Yeah.
because anyone can do it. And I just, honestly, no matter how I feel, if somebody shows me a little film with a puppet doing its thing, or if I pick up a puppet, the whole day it just brightens. It's wonderful. So I combined all of those things into my oral storytelling. Again, another twist on what you can do with your voice. Did a bit of festivals and all of that. So I'm picking that up as well, again, but through film, because obviously we can't do performances.
Yeah.
So it's thinking, okay, how can I still be creative? Not necessarily earn money, but luckily I've got the sidelines that are keeping me going financially. But hopefully, should it go where we want it to with that Swefn's Edge, somebody might see us and think, yeah, they're what we want to compose for a TV or a film or theatre, or, you just don't know what's around the corner, do you?
No, you never do. You never know what's around the corner. And I think, yeah, absolutely. You just keep plugging away, and then what's meant to be will happen, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
Wow. I love it. So have you got any of your puppets you can show me? I know we can't show them on the podcast, but I'd love to see your puppets.
Oh, I've actually got a frog right here, because the camera, what holds the camera on the tripod's broken. Frog's holding you up a little bit. Hang on a minute. We've got, I love this, Sydney the snail.
Oh, my
here.
gosh. He's amazing. Look at him. Oh, you're just gorgeous, darling. Love it.
Thanks. No, you're lovely too.
Oh no, I could be doing this all day now. This is like childhood dreams. I loved puppets as a kid, and I love that you're doing that.
What I love about it is it's just so full of love. It's love of the art, love of the voice, love of the story, love of sharing it with an audience out there. And it's just the sheer joy comes across in bucket loads. You don't have to be this highbrow composer, this highbrow actor who's trained here, there and everywhere. It's all about loving what you're doing. And do you know what? And that really, that's a really big thing for me, because working very closely with the microphone over the last 2 years here at the studio, and changing the way I work, because it's another thing that does come into what I want to talk to you about in a bit, was as I'm getting older, I'm finding memory a worry, and it's probably down to my worry that I'm forgetting things. So it's vicious circle there. But working with microphone, you can have your script, but you can really focus in on the sound of your voice, the tone of your voice. And if somebody's loving what they're doing and loving the words that they're speaking, it just pours out in tone.
Yeah.
It's
Isn't that interesting?
wondrous thing.
That connection when you're present.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and you can hear the difference. Should you get somebody off the street who's a carpenter, who's trained as a carpenter, and you gave them a short speech, and you asked them to read into a microphone, they'd read into the microphone, they'd deliver it well. But if you gave somebody who just is so in love with words and so in love with the sound that they can achieve with their voice, because that's what they're into, that's what they're trained to do, the difference is phenomenal. And you find that with the funeral delivery as well, that now I can use my voice to talk to families about their grief, from the start of their journey, sorting out their service, talking through all of that, and finding how my voice can help them, even in their front room or garden, the tone of voice, through to sorting out their script and then giving them, ringing them on the journey and saying, how is the script? And a lot of people are very angry through their grief, and angry, controlling, sad, emotionally distraught, traumatized, and understanding that it's not towards you. That's the way their grief is coming out through their vocals, through their emotions, through their words. But also on the day when I'm delivering their service, I can stand up there and I can deliver it in a manner that I know helps on that day of grief, which really worries me at the moment because of the mask thing coming in. Last week we were told that it's advised that all mourners now wear masks within chapel and crematorium. And all my celebrant friends and officiant friends were saying, well, what about us? You can't wear a mask to deliver a service.
Yeah.
People lip read, they read your facial expressions. If it's webcast, you can't see the emotions on the face of the deliverer.
Yeah.
Even a visor, with the light shining from the windows, if it's webcast, or even if people are sitting in front of you in front of the lectern, there's so many forms of communication there that are cut off by wearing a mask, even though I fully understand why we've got to wear one when we can. I think body language, reading body language and facial expression is very important. It's whenever I do workshops with children, drama workshops, that's a huge part, because they're not aware of how much we read into each other's bodies and faces and respond accordingly.
Yeah.
And also vocals, how we're feeling. As soon as somebody raises their voice, we're reading that communication all the time and responding.
Yeah, and pitch changes as well. So if my voice goes up there, you just know,
Yes.
Amazing. Right, so my first question to you, my darling, is how would you describe your journey with your voice?
The journey with my voice, when I had to think about this prior to speaking to you, one word came to mind, which is probably going to be a word that you didn't expect me to say. And that is, it's been very unsettled.
Ah, okay.
Yes. From my childhood, I was on stage in nappies singing, loved it. When I was in my teens, my mum paid for me to go to have speech and drama lessons. It was probably something to do with the fact I was very, very black country accent. I was brought up near Dudley, and it does occasionally come out in my voice. So I began to enjoy using poetry to develop my voice in my teens. And then into university years, I really loved doing my studying for drama, and I studied art history as well. But at the same time, I went to see a classical singer Olwyn Davis in Aberystwyth, and I went to see her for about 2 years. I was trained by Olwyn classically to begin with, and I won the Redvers Llewellyn Prize for singing. I think it was in my second year of uni. Got £100 for that,
Cool.
which I was over the moon with. And so from there, I loved singing, and I took it for granted. I took my voice for granted, and performing as an actress, knew exactly what I wanted to do as a career. And following uni, it kind of all went to pot a little bit, because I auditioned at 2 drama schools, and that was Mount View and Webber Douglas, which is not open anymore, Webber Douglas, sadly. Got into both, and at a very young age, and it was only those 2. Never been to London before, went down on the coach, auditioned and got in, and I was over the moon, and I worked my socks off to raise the money. But family wise, it wasn't going to be a job that they would approve of because of financial reasons, and got to get yourself a proper job, as they say.
I've heard that many a time myself.
Yeah, and you looking back, I can understand that, because the supply teaching, which is what I went on to do for a year at Cambridge, did help with that. But I was devastated. That I couldn't go to drama school, and I know that I lost out on a lot of vocal training and the basic mechanics, the understanding of basic mechanics, by not going. It's something I had to learn along the way. So I went off to Cambridge, but I used to sneak off. Teaching wasn't what I wanted to do, so I used to sneak into Cambridge town to work with all the drama students and the music students. Worked at the ADC, worked with David Mitchell and Webb,
Cool.
who were doing so well. They were doing Footlights at the time, but he often did backstage when I did the musicals. Also worked with Adam Cork, who's now one of the top composers for the RSC. He was Jack in Into the Woods, and I was Cinderella. And all these wonderful people that formed a lot of my groundwork in my art and craft. And then after that, I thought, no, this is what I want to do. I want to do the acting. And luckily I got a theatre and education job, so toured with that, met some actors who wanted a flat share in London, so did that. And Lee, it was just really going well. Worked my socks off, got myself an agent, my equity card. Singing, I would just sing all the time. From when I was little, I'd just be singing all the time. It's just a wonderful way of expressing, releasing. Sad, if you're feeling rubbish, I sing. Isn't it funny that when I sing, someone says, "Oh, you're happy today," and actually, no, I'm really not.
Yeah.
But I'm using song to express that. And then I had my daughter, and my confidence was shot to bits. I didn't tell, because I moved house. I didn't tell anybody around me that I could sing. I didn't sing. I stopped singing completely. Did a bit of supply teaching. And I it's almost like I hid that part of myself, because I really began to doubt who I was. And I don't know if it was because of hormones, or whether I had this baby to look after, and it was all, or guilt, guilt that I love my baby, but I want to be doing that, I wanted to be back on stage, and whether I suppressed that, I don't know. And through the supply teaching, I rammed my voice. I totally lost the control that I'd had previously. In London, supply teaching in primary school was harsh, so I was shouting a lot. And from that, I got quite a lot of infections, and then it was diagnosed that I had vocal nodules, and then it was all the trauma of that and the guilt again. I'm doing this job to pay the bills, but I'm destroying what I know I should be using instead.
That's tough. That's tough psychologically. I mean, in terms
of So then I picked up my storytelling. I set up my storytelling company, Fallen Moon, working with my puppets, which I'd always used in my teaching because I love puppetry, and different types of voices you can put on, and the sheer wonder and enjoyment of children when because I'm not a ventriloquist, I could never do that, but the puppet sits on my lap or on my arm, and even though my mouth is doing all the talking, they don't really look at my mouth, they look at the
they look at
puppet's
the
mouth.
puppet's mouth. Yeah, I love that.
And it's just brilliant.
It's
And
dreamy.
sometimes you get one that goes, but you're doing the talking. But it's very rare, very rare. And then no, it's not. They're doing the talking, and putting different accents on and sounds on, and really I'm beginning to understand how you can just tweak something in your tone, or the way you express something that changes the character of the animal or the puppet that you're using at the time. So unsettled. After that, with the nodules, I didn't sing for a long time until I started going into singer open mics again, which started to bring me out of my shell. And then through what I'm doing now with my husband, with that Swefn's Edge, it's just lovely because it's almost somebody's given me this little gift of a box. You can sit in front of a microphone. You can have your words, so I don't have to worry about remembering anything. If I'm having a day where that worries me, the nervousness goes because I'm so comfortable in this environment. And the only person listening is my husband, Michael, and we really work well off each other. I inspire him with the music. He inspires me with the spoken word. So it's a two-way process. I mean, there's not many people out there that have that gift of being able to do whatever comes in your head, no matter how crazy it is.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's quite a lot of my time.
I love that. It's awesome that you have this that you have this outlet, and it's interesting to reflect on that when you didn't, how that affected your whole person. With your journey then so far, is there anything that you now know that you wish you'd learned sooner? And do feel free to go back to that other question if you hadn't finished.
Yeah, no, I think one of the main points is not to take my vocal ability for granted.
Yeah.
As I said, I didn't go to drum school, so I know that I didn't have the basic mechanics of teaching what was going on with my vocals, and I think I'd like to learn still now a little bit more about what's going on. And I came to you for a while, and through all my other teachers, I had numerous teachers when I lived in London. One was a voice coach, one was all about theatre, what sort of pieces to brush up on for audition technique.
Yeah.
So I went to see Charles Miller for that, and then I went to see Arwell Morgan for my voice. So I had a bit of both going on. So I think that's very important. And just generally, if I could turn back the clock, I would try to accept myself earlier. I would try and maintain my confidence, or really work on the period of when I was pregnant and going into Erin's first years of childhood, to really take time out mentally for myself and begin to understand what journey I was on then, instead of almost bulldoze my way through the guilt and the betrayal of what I'm supposed to be doing and who I am, and blame. I blaming everybody. It's because of you that I'm not on stage. It's because of you that I'm not using my voice. And it really, it's not like that at all. And accepting that, but also looking after my voice a lot more. I would have, even though I needed to pay my rent, I needed to do the supply teaching, I could have been more specific with my consultant and said, look, do you know what? I just want to do the little ones. I just want to do Key Stage 1, not Key Stage 2. I don't want to go back to that school again because it was horrible, and I screamed my way through the day because nobody wanted to listen to me. It was just days. I actually drove home in tears because it was so bad.
That's tough.
Because you're just ruining your tool. You're just, for people, for children, and it's not, it's not their fault really, but just children who didn't necessarily want to be there. They didn't want to listen to what you were teaching, even though I'd whip out the puppets, to try and encourage them to enjoy what we were doing. I'd try and encourage them to see a subject in a different manner. So I'd get drama going on for a history lesson or geography, or take them onto the playground to look at this, at that and the other. And even though I tried to do that, still vocally you have to be extremely on it. And I wish that I'd have warmed up more. Warming up is a key, and I do now on my way to funerals. When I'm going to officiate a funeral as a celebrant, I warm up in the car. Very important to me.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you think about what led you to, the love of drama and the love of taking on a character, the love of all of those things is escaping yourself for a while, isn't it, in its own way? So I do think that when I went into drama in the first place, it was to escape a bit of an unhappy childhood and trauma that I'd experienced when I was younger. So I do think there's a lot of that in the industry because we love that we're being someone else. But we do,
and also that we're often told what to say. We're given that script. We don't have to sit and think, okay, now what does that person want me to say? What do I want to say? How should I say it? The director's there to help you with that. So it really does help to have that script in front of you, because as long as you say the words all right. And when I do the funeral officiating, sometimes I look up off from the lectern, and it's a sea of faces and of mourners, and some are quiet, so you'll have a really quiet service. Some are quite vocal, so they will clap if you get speakers, and they'll laugh along with little quips that I put in about remembering the deceased's fun things they said or did. But when it's the quiet ones, I have this little mantra in my head, and it's trust in the words, Kate. Trust in the words, Kate. And that's all that's going in my head, because I might be reading the script I've got in front of me that's been fully approved, goodness knows how many times, by the family. And I just have to think, trust in the words. These are the words they want to hear. These are the correct words that you're saying. Just deliver them with love. And you can't go wrong. But there's still that, oh my goodness, why are they quiet? Why are they quiet? And maybe that's the actor part of me. When you're standing in front of an audience, they're not quiet, not really, because they giggle along with you, they rustle their sweets. So it's a strange environment, but it's taught me so much by doing it.
I bet.
About the human condition.
That's another reason I wanted to speak to you about this, because I just thought you must have such an insight. And also that's really interesting, you're saying that stillness of your delivery as a celebrant with, like you say, this script that's been it's very personalized to the person that you're celebrating, of course. The responsibility on your shoulders in that moment to not mess up, first of all, not sort of fall over your words in any way, or drop the paper, or pour a glass of water on it. But the responsibility is as intense as standing on a stage, isn't it? I would imagine. I mean, I've never done this job, but do you get any anxiety in terms of that, or do you feel very much like you're delivering it now and at ease?
Days change, just like it would when you're going on stage. Some days you turn up to the theatre and you think, I've got this, I've nailed this. I'm really looking forward to today after yesterday's performance, maybe. But with the funerals, I always still get the jitters before going in, because I think that's the pressure that you feel because you want to do the best for your family. You've also got the pressure of the pomp and circumstance and ceremony of the ritual, because it is a ritual from the time the hearse turns up, and the clothes everybody is wearing. It's very much part of that tradition to get right and to get the that respect communicated through your facial expressions, your body language, your actions, and your tone of voice. It's so different to supply teaching. I mean,
yeah.
is it the difference between the two? Getting the children in, morning,
Yes.
hello, coming in, get your books out, and then going to what you do at the beginning of a funeral. But when you're delivering the script, all you can do is really pull back. And that is a massive contrast to being on stage, because on stage you communicate outwards from your core. But I think with the funeral delivery, it's almost that you have to pull everybody in to your core, which is your heart, which is love, which is trust and respect. I never thought of it like that, but does that make sense?
It completely makes sense. It really does, because yeah, absolutely, it feels that way. And that stillness that you feel on the quiet ones, I think, is where you are pulling them in, and they are with you on that journey through that speech.
Trusting the words, that they are correct, and just communicating them in a way that they need to hear on that day, and just to let them know that you're there for them, even though I didn't necessarily know the person we're talking about. It's more likely that I never met them. But funerals do work on so many levels. It's not just for the loved one who you're remembering, it's also for the family. And I think that's very important, that a service is for them too. And sometimes they're quite shocked by that. When I see them at the very beginning of the journey of writing the script, I will say, we're choosing music here, and yes, you're really focusing in on the music that your loved one really loved in their life to listen to. But what about you? Let's choose one that's for you and your family, that stirs those memories, and don't feel guilty that it's for that, because it's important that you are a part of that service as well in the construction of it. Switching a little bit to when I did the storytelling, that's another totally different environment. When you're in a storytelling tent, you've got the kids in front of you, and you've got no book. You don't use a book there's no barrier between your voice and the children you're telling the story to, oral retelling. But without them there, the story doesn't happen. The pictures in my head that my words are creating in my head are different to each one of those children. And I say that to them, your picture is going to be different to his picture, he's going to be different to her picture, and they go, wow, yeah. And all of the films that are playing in their head as you're telling a story, but it's a two-way process. You can't have a storyteller without an audience.
Yes. And you bounce off of those children and what they're saying, and a great skill again for an actor to have. It's improvisation in that moment, isn't it? And fantastic.
Yes.
That's so cool.
And a different feel of environment. You walk on a stage, you get that buzz of the environment. The atmosphere is different to when you walk into a crematorium chapel or a chapel in a cemetery, which is different to walking into a tent at a festival, or going into a pub and singing at open mics, or professionally performing in a band, or going into the studio, into the vocal room and standing in front of a mic. It's such a different buzz from each one.
And how versatile are we to do all of those different things with our voices, using them in different ways? It's incredible.
It is.
It really is. So what do you find now most valuable in caring for your voice?
Warming up, big one. To actually take my time with that, and in the car, respecting my voice is just top of my list. And not going in cold, thinking ahead. Okay, I know I'm not singing today, but I need to warm up my vocal spoken range, my speaking voice. Not teaching as much, and being patient with myself on that, and saying, okay, when schools are open. You've done enough supply teaching, Kate. Pull back a little bit. You can increase my productivity vocally, my quality, my tone, my sound when working with the microphone. If I've got some microphone work coming up, you've got to think, okay, what am I doing the few days beforehand, and thinking ahead. Steaming. Oh goodness, I've got to say steaming, because the lady, the vocal therapist that I saw that put me in touch with you, Lee, when I'd been diagnosed with the nodules at Broomfield Hospital. I saw her quite a while. When she said, "Are you steaming?"
Are you steaming?
Yeah. How many times a day? Well, I do it when I can. What? 4 times a day, Kate. 4 times a day.
Wow.
What, 4? It's like, yeah, at least. So doing that, and also massaging. I've learned to do that. And sometimes when my neck gets a bit tense, I will massage my my throat area, and so steaming. But I've always loved gargling with ginger beer.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's a good one, but that works for me all the way through. Even when I was in my teens, I used to gargle with ginger beer, but I really like ginger beer, so I drink it afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of a gargle, bit of a drink. And I really, really swear by Sanderson's throat specific throat mixture.
Ooh.
And you can't buy it anywhere now.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
It's gone. It's wonderful, and it's a little gargle. And I listened to Nicola Goodchild saying about time tea.
Oh yeah.
And I reckon it's probably a little bit like that.
Oh, it could be.
But actually saying it aloud, people are probably going to go and search for it now. Which
What's
is
it called again? I'm going to search for it.
Sanderson's throat specific. I don't know if it's tincture or mixture, and it comes in little bottles, but you can't get it anywhere.
I'd just be interested to look it up and see what the ingredients are, because I mean, I think lots of things that may have been touted, to help the voice. I mean, once you swallow, I mean, the thing is, I think it's just the fact that they're not going to reach the vocal folds. We know that the larynx closes when we swallow. So I think maybe years ago when people say, drink this, it coats your folds or whatever, people believed it because they didn't really know the how the voice worked at that point as much as, or as commonly as it's known now. So I am always interested, and I think with I think a lot of certain things might be a bit of a placebo, because you trust that what you've done has in somehow released something that you would have held on to if you hadn't done that thing. So I do think there's quite a lot of placebo with a lot of these things. But if it works for that person, and it's even if it is, I'm like, well, if it works, do it, because there's no harm is going to come to you from it. The only thing I would say about certain lozenges that are marketed for helping with sore throats and things rather than voice is that they can have a very drying effect on the throat. So I've noticed that. So it's not that yes, it will help if you're congested and it will unblock you, but it could leave you in your throat in a more dry condition than had you not had one, which might make you a bit more susceptible for an injury if you're using your voice intensely. So yeah, I'm always a bit cautious, but I just think if you find something that works for you, like Nicola's time tea, if that works for you, do it. I'm not going to say.
And I'm going to try that. I will try it. I promise to Nicola, if you're listening.
Yeah.
I will. Have you tried it yet?
I haven't tried it yet, but I haven't really had anything. I mean, I get hay fever this time of year, and I'm to counter my hay fever, I'll show you. The listeners can't see it, but I've got my little nebulizer thing here.
Okay.
And this is what I use now instead of my steamer, because I used to use my Dr. Nelson steamer all the time. And what I find with this, because there's no heat, is that I get the lovely kind of lubrication and sort of feeling of hydration in my throat, but I don't have the steam. I don't have the heat.
Okay. And I've had some very scary allergy moments as well over the last 10 years. And I still don't know what it is. There's a perfume out that really gets my throat, and it starts to
close up,
swell up. I don't know what it is. I've not found out what it is, but I know when it's about. It's not good. It's quite scary, actually.
Yes, it is. If you get anything that wants to close the throat, it's terrifying. Absolutely,
it is.
I would say having
saying that. I do try and drink lots of water, Miss Lee.
Yes.
Because all my singing teachers have said you've got to keep hydrated with drinking water. So I always make sure that I've got my bottle of water with me, and belief in that I can do it. Whatever I'm doing, rather than let that anxiety take over, which gives me the headaches, that gives me, the neck tension that makes everything close up. I have to do the old, I can do this. Trust in the words, Kate.
Yes,
It sounds
trust in the
very
words,
Star
Kate.
Warsy.
I love that. I love it.
Believe yourself. Believe in yourself. You've got every right to sing. You've got every right to speak. And you're not rubbish. I think that's the thing. We're constantly thinking, I'm rubbish. I shouldn't be saying this. People think I'm rubbish. What do they think I'm doing? Why am I doing this? Do they think I'm silly because I do have ridiculous ideas? Just trust that you've got every right to be on this. You're standing on the ground. You're in this universe. You're here for a reason. You've got every right to occupy your space.
Absolutely.
Own
your space. Own your space. Occupy your space. Give yourself permission to be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Love yourself and not feel rotten that you are loving yourself. Doesn't mean that you're full of yourself. Doesn't mean that you're selfish at all.
What does your voice mean to you?
I think going through lots of infections, vocal nodules, it's really made me aware of how important my voice is. Voice is everything. It really is everything. When I was going through any hoarseness or if my voice disappeared, the impossibility of singing a song, not being able to express what I wanted to say or to sing, was like removing a limb. It was a part of me that had gone. And the fear that it would never come back. Oh. I must be coming over as so unhinged.
No, at all.
Because of course, when you've got a flu or when you've got some sort of infection, of course it's going to come back. But sometimes it takes so long, especially when you're suffering with all of that stuff that goes on with your throat, with vocal nodules. The fear that it would never come back. But my voice, the problems with it provoked an uncertainty with the physical, with the mental, because of doubting myself. And by twisting that on its head, I've now begun to realize that my voice just is this box of infinite possibilities that I can use to communicate through spoken word, poetry, song, improvisation, play. And I think as a grown up, we don't play. As a grown up, we don't play enough. And I love to play with what's going on with my voice, what I'm saying, word play. And when you sing a song, you're not just singing words, you're telling a story. And that's all to do with play as well. Yeah, so that's what my voice is to me. It's everything, really.
Yes, it's wonderful. And can I just finish with asking you, what voices inspire you, or whose voices inspire you, and who could you never tire of listening to? So when you're having some time away from your voice, who do you turn to?
I love certain actors speaking other people's words of the poets. Particularly, I love Wordsworth and Byron. I love Miriam Margolyes. I think she's absolutely fantastic. It's not necessarily her voice, even though she's got a wonderfully expressive voice. It's what she does with it, what she says with it, and who she says it to.
Love that.
And her confidence.
Yes.
I love that. Stephen Fry, I love him and his voice. And again, it's what he does with it. There's a wonderful artist by the name of Rima Staines and her partner, Tom Hirons, and they work with Hedge Spoken. And the two of them are expert creatives. Even though she's an artist, and I believe this of every artist, an artist still has a voice. An actor obviously has a physical voice, but when I was because you'd asked me, have a think about this, whose voice inspires you? Who would I never tire of listening to? I love the voices of puppeteers. Jim Henson, Brian Froud, who did the concept for Labyrinth. That's a voice, even though he's not necessarily his voice. It's his interpretation, his expression through other ways, his speaking through other ways. And the Little Angel Theatre Company as well. They've got a fantastic voice as a collective. But for me, whose voice inspires you? It's somebody, anyone, who expresses themselves.
Yeah.
It's anyone who has a story and wants to communicate that with somebody else. And it could be their own personal story or a story that they've imagined. That's really important. And I will sit and watch a puppeteer. I will sit and listen to a family member that I'm going to see, and to create their service for their loved one, and just to sit and listen to the words that they are using, to the tone of their voice, to the way they're expressing themselves, even if they sit there and sob.
Yeah. Just
to give them that time to express themselves in that way. I think that's what voice means to me. So I can't say that person X, I really love them, because I think it's a little bit different for me.
No, that's absolutely, it's a wonderful answer. And it really speaks to me in that what you've just described is how I would describe the what I see as vocal freedom, is that when you get that connection and you feel that the person delivering whatever it is they're delivering, like you say, a speech or something from a play or a musical theatre or whatever it is, when you truly listen and believe them, and there's that connection, and you're getting what they're delivering is landing on you. So I think actually there's something to be said about being an active listener as well, because you can be in those situations and not really be connecting because you're not really being an active listener. You're just flicking through the program instead, or whatever it is. Some people don't do that so well. So I think it's partly being a really active listener combined with the person being completely present in their performance, whatever that is, that draws you in, that makes you feel like, yes, you're speaking to me, you're singing to me, whatever it is, you get that connection. I think that might be it.
Definitely, because with the storytelling, as we said, you can't tell a story without one person listening to that story. And I was thinking earlier about the problems of social media. Everybody's shouting at each other, and there's not that much active listening going on.
No, that's right.
And that's what, through the lockdown as well, I got very, very upset with social media. And also, if you're walking, I don't go out too often because still lockdown anxiety, very much a part of that at the moment, and it's a part of me. And I don't know if it's an Essex thing that people do shout at each other rather than talk, generally on the street, or if you're on a beach. Communication, we've sort of fallen by the wayside, I think, a little bit in how we talk and communicate to each other. And I've got to, I don't know if you've seen it, Lee. Did you see my floating on the edge when I took the rowing boat in the middle of the basin?
Yes, I did. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was so like, go Kate, this is amazing. Thank you for doing that.
It was all to do with knowing how many people are out there who can't sing, how many people out there can't play their instrument. And at chapel, there's loads of families that they want to sing a hymn, but we have to stand and listen to it now. We can't sing. And that feeling of almost somebody's put some gaffer tape on your mouth, especially if you love to sing, if you love to use your voice. And I thought, right, what can I do to express how I'm feeling? And it took 3 attempts because of the noise, the local noise and everything around the Heybridge Basin. But one night was perfect, and I managed to get myself an anchor because I was drifting a little bit. But the lockkeeper said, "Come over here, Kate, use this anchor." So I had to throw over a really long anchor in order to stop drifting as I stood and sang this piece of Mozart. And it was, somebody else also said, when we put it on YouTube, Why didn't you put the music on afterwards? Because I had music piped into my ears so I could sing the aria, which was Poor General. But it was so important to get the ambient sounds, the pigeons, the ducks, the water.
Definitely.
As a part of that, there are moments of stillness, of quiet, but actually it's not quiet. I'm just not singing at various points. And I really did need to make that stand and say, how crazy is this situation at the moment, where we have to go so far away from somebody to sing in that way, to sing classically, to speak. No one's allowed to chant together anymore. And that ritualistic joining together in voice is not allowed.
I know.
But I did just want to say one thing. And I think this is really important, going back to vocal freedom that you were talking about.
Yes.
When you speak of vocal freedom, it might be that somebody thinks of an activist standing up and speaking about Black Lives Matter, for example.
Absolutely.
But yes, of course, that's part of vocal freedom, is being able to say how you're feeling without fear. But also, it works in hand with a child at school, being able to say to somebody else of a same age in their class, or a teacher, or whoever they speak to, I'm feeling lonely. That has as much weight to me as somebody standing on a podium talking into a microphone to thousands of people, that they feel able to voice their feelings. I'm hungry, I'm lonely, I'm scared. For me, through the years of not being able to sing, to be able to open up and say, this is what happened. And I can't apologize for it. It just happened to me.
You don't need to,
and to learn from that, and to become a stronger person from that. And doing the job that I've been doing so much this year, I think it's allowed me to take a step back from myself, and to appreciate what others are going through as well, with patience, and try and understand and vocalize how I'm feeling too.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all these feelings and being so very open about it all. I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much for sharing your time with me today.
That's all right, Lee. It was an honour to speak to you.
It's been lovely. Thank you for joining me on the Vocal Freedom Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and we'll move into your day with a bit more vocal freedom, feeling that you can express using your voice and let the world hear what you have to say. Visit colchestervoiceacademy.com/podcast. Sign up to be kept informed as new episodes are published, and consider joining our online community. Membership to this will allow you to post questions to our guests, link you to show notes, social media links, and entitle you to exclusive offers from our guests. See you next time.